I was just curious to hear from you. What made you decide to go down this journey of entrepreneurship? Because it is not easy, right? It is not easy. It's, as people say, it's not for the faint of heart. So what made you decide, okay, I have kids, I have all of this, and and I'm sure you have, by the time that they're getting to 22, we know that you've learned a lot along the way. So what made you even agree to say, okay, I'm going to go into entrepreneurship while also balancing motherhood?
It was actually the fact that I hated the idea that one person could change my destiny with the stroke of a pen. I actually find that employment is one of the riskiest things to do, particularly these days. The more we were sold this idea as young people, that if you study hard and you get good grades and you pass your exams and you do your professional studies, you will get one job, you will hold on to that job for the rest of your life, they will pay you marvelously, and when you retire, you'll get a wheelbarrow, a golden watch, and a check, and you could go into the countryside and, I don't know, live the rest of your life or whatever. But if you notice the nature of work and employment, the loyalty that companies had to individuals changed, particularly in the voracious 90s and the 2000s it starts. And therefore, the loyalty that people had to companies also changed. And for me, one of the first things that I had to do when I was, very early in my career, I'm a trained and practicing lawyer, that is my background. One of the earliest things that I had to do was to fire people. And I always remembered how awful that was, how difficult it was, and how I'd spent so much time wondering, so what happened to this person after they left, after this conversation? And thinking that one person could decide at the stroke of a pen to completely disrupt my life without me having the opportunity to, without having a handle on anything, made me think, no, especially when I had children, I want to have a measure of control around my time, because I don't get that back. It's not a renewable energy. And I want to be able to have control over how I make my money and my resources and what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so that's what led me to entrepreneurship, as opposed to having a job, which I also had. And so I have had the benefit of both experiences.
Wow, that is amazing. And it's great to hear you say that, because I know a lot of times having a job might feel safe in some extent, and entrepreneurship might seem risky as well. But hearing you say that it's really about the entrepreneurship in itself actually does give you a certain level of freedom, because then you were deciding your own times. You're able to schedule your different activities around your kids' schedules and your schooling. Maybe I could ask, how old were your kids by the time you went into entrepreneurship?
My eldest was 6. My youngest at the time was 2. So I started fairly early. I'd had a 10-year career before that. So I was late to motherhood. I didn't have my children until I was well into my 30s. But what was really great about it that I'd like to say is that I'd had the opportunity to really reach the highest echelons of my career in terms of work, both in industry as well as in practice here in Kenya, as well as in the UK. And so I knew that I could. Mm-hmm. And so I had needed to prove that to myself. And when I proved that I could, the question for me was, what did I want to do next? It was also catalyzed by the fact that I had a real health scare. And I asked myself, if I didn't have a tomorrow, would I be proud of how I'd spent today? And the answer, despite having a very high-flying career, working in the City of London, working in one of the top 5 corporate law firms, the answer was not yes. And that bothered me that it was not yes. And I wanted it to make it a yes, because I recognized, and that moment was a moment of reflection for me, where I really recognized that this thing called life is finite.
Yeah.
And that, you know, there does come a time when it is the end, and at that point, you know, there's the game's over. But between now and that point, I want to live a life that everyone agrees by the time I'm leaving, they're like, yeah, that one lived full out. That one, like, there's nothing she, like, it's her oxygen tank is empty. It's okay. She can go. I say it on a light note. And then there were things that I wanted to experience with my children as well. I homeschooled my children when they were very young. So at those ages, from the age of 2 for each one of them, I homeschooled them for a fairly long time, until my youngest was 7. And that was important to me. I don't think other people are responsible for things in my life. I don't think the school is responsible for my children's education. I don't think the hospital is responsible for my health. I pay them as agents of my will. So if my child is not being well educated and that school is not performing, not my child is not performing, my child is always performing. Where the school is not performing in a way that aligns with my child's way of learning or learning how to learn, then it's on me. It's not on them. It's on me to go to get that child and find out, how do they learn? How do they grow? How do they expand? Because it's my job to educate them. And I take that as well, and relating back to what you said earlier about the false or the fake comfort of being employed, is there's this idea that if I give someone my time and if I give them my energy, then they will give me money in return because I showed up. And the truth of the matter is, employment very, very often is someone determining how many more times the value of what that you're paying them, they can give you back. And then it's this play with employees doing just enough not to get fired, and then employers paying just enough so that they don't quit. And that's an awful loop to be stuck in, because you're not playing full out unless you're in a really passionate job that you enjoy. You're not playing full out. And then on the other side, your employer is not paying you full value. And it's a balance, because even with entrepreneurship, you've got to figure out, okay, what is my value and what will the market take? But certainly there's a measure of independence in knowing tomorrow I could walk away. Today I choose not to, as opposed to tomorrow I cannot walk away because I am bound by the fear that somebody else needs to pay me for my time and my energy and skill, and that I could be replaced, like I said, at the stroke of a pen.